A giant ape and a three-headed dog burst out of the fog and pounced on Zhang Yi from the left and right. Zhang Yi calmly paid attention to the movements around him, and his hands spread out to the left and right. The two giant Shikigami saw that Zhang Yi was not going to dodge and they both charged at him. Kanemaru raised his fist the size of a sand pot and roared as he smashed it down. Akamaru spit out scarlet magma and the three giant heads let out ear-piercing howls. Puff! A mouthful of magma spewed towards Zhang Yi's head. However, the lava did not approach Zhang Yi, but instead simply disappeared into the air, being absorbed by Zhang Yi into his dimensional space. Kanemaru's fist, however, came directly towards Zhang Yi. Its power was too great, and after the fist smashed down, its entire body was directly taken into dimensional space, leaving not even a ripple behind. Akamaru was somewhat slower, but only by a small margin, and its huge body was also absorbed by Zhang Yi into his dimensional space. Oh, to be precise, they ran in by themselves. Deep in the thick fog, Jinguji Saikiro was scared, and cold sweat was running down his forehead. Although he still didn't know who Zhang Yi was or what his abilities were, he had sent out two Shikigami, but they were effortlessly collected by the opponent. Obviously, the opponent's abilities were restraining him. After collecting Kanemaru and Akamaru, Zhang Yi's gaze fell on Jinguji Saikiro. The distance between the two was about 400 meters. Just right. A twisting white light slowly began to emerge from the center of his right eye, and a terrifying space power rapidly gathered. At this moment, Jinguji Saikiro felt the crisis of death. As a stock trader, he was extremely cautious by nature. So at this moment, Jinguji Saikiro did not hesitate, and turned around and ran directly towards the far distance while thinking to himself. This person is not simple, if I stay any longer I will die, I have to hurry to the others and discuss a plan. In the combat center, news of the battle situation here was also reported to Zhu Zheng. Zhu Zheng and Tu Yunlai and the others were dumbfounded. None of them had expected that in the end, it was not the Heavenly God Squad but Zhang Yi, a mutant from the outer city, who had established the heroic achievements. Only Bai Li Changqing sighed inwardly, not at all surprised by this outcome. It could even be said that if it weren't for Zhang Yi's excessive prudence, the battle scene would have been even more dazzling had there been a more radical mutant. Zhu Zheng muttered, I never imagined that this Zhang Yi would be so powerful. If I had known, I would have reallocated the tasks. Lan Xinchen, however, said, he just picked up the slack and killed Kamaya Gato and Akutsu Shinichiro. Tu Yunlai gave him a gloomy look. But he scared Jinguji off. And he completely relied on his own strength to kill the husband and wife team of Eclipse Moon. I even feel that this guy's strength is on par with someone at the level of vice captain. Lan Xinchen paused for a moment, then said coldly, if he is really such a powerful person, why has he remained hidden? If he had gone to support other fronts earlier, the current situation might be completely different. He looked at Zhu Zheng and said, Commander Zhu, I still feel that this person's heart is not completely loyal to Blizzard City. This comment was met with a derisive laugh from Bai Li Changqing. Pfft. This sound was too harsh in the combat center. Lan Xinchen angrily glared at Bai Li Changqing. Bai Li Changqing, what are you laughing at? Bai Li Changqing shrugged, nothing, I just don't think we should judge the mutants in the outer city by Blizzard City's standards. And among the mutants in the outer city, Zhang Yi was considered to have performed the best this time. Lan Xinchen really couldn't argue with that. He could only say, someone who is capable of helping their comrades but deliberately reserves their strength is something the elite of our Blizzard City would never do. Okay. Zhu Zheng stopped Lan Xinchen's nonsense. At this time, he was in no mood to listen to Lan Xinchen and Bai Li Changqing bicker. The issue at hand was what concerned him the most. Lan Xinchen quickly shut his mouth and stopped talking about it. However, soon, he thought of another solution. Now that we know Zhang Yi has some strength, why not let him continue fighting Eclipse Moon? This way, he can also help the other members of the Heavenly God Squad on the field. Although he said this, the battle in the arena was not going well. Moreover, Deng Shintong had already reached Eclipse Moon's base camp and engaged Eclipse Moon's team leader, Phoenix Ren, in battle. That battle would determine the outcome of this operation. Zhu Jing looked at Zhang Yi in the screen and after a moment of thought, said, "Zhang Yi, your mission is complete, withdraw now." Lan Xingqing was shocked by this news. "Commander Zhu." Zhu Jing ignored Lan Xingqing's words and silently ended the communication with Zhang Yi. Too many people have died in this battle. The next battle will be between Deng Shintong and Phoenix Ren. At the level of Deng Shintong's battle, ordinary mutants would be giving up their lives for no reason, even if they joined in. And now Zhang Yi had accomplished the mission very well. No, I should say that he had accomplished the mission far beyond Zhu Zheng's expectations. Zhu Jing wished to keep this good seedling. If possible, let him join Blizzard City, and in the future, he might be another captain-level combatant. Zhang Yi was a bit surprised by Zhu Zheng's order. He had originally thought that Zhu Jing would allow him to continue charging through the battlefield. For this type of matter, Zhang Yi would not refuse. After all, with his strength, it was easy to clean up the mess, and he could also pick up heads for point rewards. Even if he encountered an enemy that he couldn't clean up, escaping was still not a problem. But Zhu Jing had said so, clearly having enough confidence in Deng Shintong and the others. Zhang Yi wasn't a person who loved the limelight, so he calmly observed his surroundings and slowly withdrew from the battlefield. Carrying a brilliant battle record of killing 4 Eclipse Moon members, Zhang Yi left Jiangning Square. Shortly after he stepped out, some medics immediately came over to greet him. Zhang Yi just smiled faintly at them. "I'm fine." Seeing this, a few of the medical soldiers were amazed among their eyes and looked at Zhang Yi with respect. It was because during this operation, more than half of the mutants in the outer city were injured or killed, and almost none of them were intact. Zhang Yi was the last one to walk out from the battlefield. Although they did not know what happened in the battlefield, this was enough to make them respect Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi went all the way back to the armed helicopter. Seeing that the top had been converted into a temporary intensive care ward, the outer city mutants who had survived, except for Liang Yu and Peng Li, had basically all suffered relatively serious injuries. Yuan Hao was lying on a stretcher bed, his weak face pale, as if he was dying. On the other hand, his girlfriend, Xiao Lingling, stood by the stretcher bed with lifeless eyes, not saying anything, like a dead person. Zhang Yi saw the horrific wounds on her torso, as well as the blood and flesh turned out that did not resemble a living person, and in his heart, he then realized why Xiao Lingling was not counted in the count of the number of mutants in the outer city in the first place. Mo Zhongning, Li Weihai and the others were not at ease either. The battle just now had dealt them a very heavy blow. Not only physically, but also psychologically. They were similar to the Eclipse Moon organization in terms of nature. Both were stragglers that were not affiliated with any official organization. Yet when fighting, the difference in strength was simply like a heavenly rift. If Heavenly God Squad hadn't entered the scene in time, all of them would have surely died. As a result, the crowd gave Zhang Yi, who had returned unharmed, a strange and envious look. Zhang Yi ignored them and walked straight to Liang Yu's side and sat down. Chen Xiaoxiao had recovered almost as much after Peng Li's treatment and the medical team's use of medication on her. Although she could not fight in the short term, her life was not in danger. She looked at Zhang Yi with a bit of awe in her eyes. She had seen with her own eyes that Zhang Yi had killed 2 Eclipse Moons in seconds by himself. "Zhang Yi, have you completed your mission?" Chen Xiaoxiao asked cautiously. Zhang Yi thought about it. Zhu Jing had given him orders to support the northern front. But when he arrived, Liao Honglei had already been killed. However, he had also killed Kamaya Gato and Akutsu Shinichiro, so all in all, he had not dishonored his mission. So Zhang Yi nodded, sort of. At these words, the mutants present in the outer city were all shocked. Even the medical staff on the side couldn't help but look sideways. Mo Zhongning looked at Zhang Yi in shock. "You don't tell us that you took out a member of Eclipse Moon." He lowered his head and muttered, "Those guys, they're strong like monsters." Li Weihai shook his head. "That's impossible. Only someone from the Heavenly God Squad can go up against them." As for us mutants from the outer cities, we're just cannon fodder. Zhang Yi originally did not want to bother with the few people here. However, hearing this desperate tone from them, he could not help but sneer. Are the people of Eclipse Moon strong? Why don't I feel that? Is it possible that you guys are too weak? When these words came out, the few people who were already scared out of their wits by Eclipse Moon became angry. Mo Zhongning huffed, Zhang Yi, did you really meet someone from Eclipse Moon? Do you know how strong they really are? Li Weihai also shook his head. I've heard that no members of Eclipse Moon have appeared on your side at all. This may have given you an undeserved illusion. As for your so-called completion of supporting the Northern Front, I guess it was just a matter of going over there to fight for assistance and let off some cold shots. Zhang Yi sighed, his body leaning back on the chair inside the helicopter. He said in a gentle tone, it may really be like what you guys said. It was me who created an illusion, stumbled upon 4 weak Eclipse Moon members, and then took their lives. That's all. These words caused the atmosphere inside the helicopter to change. Even Yuan Hao, who was weakly lying on the hospital bed, sat up and looked at Zhang Yi with disbelief. What did you say? You really killed the members of Eclipse Moon, and 4 of them at that. He had killed 2 more members of Eclipse Moon? Wouldn't that mean that Zhang Yi had exterminated 1/3 of Eclipse Moon with his own strength? This kind of battle performance could only be described as terrifying. Although he knew that it was pointless for Zhang Yi to lie about such matters. However, the truth of his experience made him unable to believe that Zhang Yi could take out 4 powerful Eclipse Moon members. Taking out even just one was very unbelievable. Obviously, we were all mutants from the outer city, all leaders of one side of the force, and the level of strength should be similar. What makes you so awesome? Zhang Yi was too lazy to explain as he sat on his chair, his eyes looking through the window towards the center of Jiangning Square. Right now, all he needed to do was wait. Waiting for the outcome of the battle between Deng Shintong and the Eclipse Moon leader. On this side of the combat center, everyone's gazes were also fixed dead on there. Deng Shintong, nowadays, was their last hope. But even though the battle situation on the field was already very unsatisfactory, Zhu Zheng's heart was more secure than anyone else's. Because he believed in Deng Shintong's strength. Behind Deng Shintong stood the armed forces of Blizzard City, as well as the Deng Group's decades of technological power. Right in the center of Jiangning Square, the king met the king, and the collision between the 2 captain-level mutants finally began. At the same time, the Eclipse Moon Group, the combat center, and the mutants in the outer city, all felt the terrifying aura that made the air freeze, erupting from the center of Jiangning Square. While the stalemate continued on other fronts, the battle between Deng Shintong and Phoenix Ren had already begun. Everyone knew that this battle would determine the outcome of the war. Satoru Shimano hurriedly led Mayumi Takeuchi away from the battlefield. A battle of this level was not something they were qualified to witness. They could only leave it to Phoenix Ren to deal with. After the 2 teammates left, Phoenix Ren stared at Deng Shintong with a smile, revealing 2 fierce glances beneath his newsboy cap. As long as I can kill you here, I think the old men in the Jiangnan region will finally wake up. Deng Shintong grinned and waved at him, you can try. Phoenix Ren put away the smile on his face. From the depths of his eyebrows, a bright red mark quickly emerged, and then spread along the cheeks, slowly forming bright red splotches all over his face. It was a colorful red, deep red, bright and shiny, and had the mottled shimmer of the stars. It was as if streams of crimson galaxies were rushing through his skin. The crimson markings gradually spread to his neck, the back of his hands, and finally cover the entire body. A powerful aura that is suffocating emerges from his body. He doesn't look tall and strong, but at this moment, just a pair of clenched fists gives off a feeling that can blow apart the sky. Eclipse Moon Team Leader, Phoenix Ren. Trait System Ability User. Ability Code Phoenix. Phoenix Ren's body was surrounded by a red aura of blood, and the temperature of the surrounding space quickly increased, causing large areas of ice and snow to begin melting. He did not rush to attack, but looked at his opponent, Deng Shintong, who was not far away. Come on, let me see your power. Deng Shintong smiled and nodded lightly. Okay. The moment his voice fell, his arms spread out to the sides like the wings of an angel. Then, an incredibly holy and magnificent light exploded outwards from him in all directions. The color suddenly disappeared from the pupils of Phoenix Ren. Even his pitch-black pupils had now turned white. It was as if he was in a white-out space, where everything had disappeared, including his own body, which he could no longer see. Heavenly God Squad Captain Deng Shintong. Trait System Ability User. Ability Code, Praise of Light. His ability is light. It can give people light, but it can also take it away. With this move, Blind World, everyone except him loses their sight and can't see anything but white. Phoenix Ren is not far away, but he can no longer see his face. Deng Shintong raised the corners of his mouth slightly, took a step with his right foot, and the next moment appeared in front of Phoenix Ren. Then, a punch aimed fiercely at his head blasted past. Although Phoenix Ren had lost his vision, his fighting instincts were still there, and his keen intuition for danger made him aware that Deng Shintong was approaching. As the fist wind swept past, he quickly blocked with his hand. However, after all, he was half a beat behind Deng Shintong. In a masterful exchange, the outcome can be decided in an instant. Being half a beat behind can be fatal. However, even though Phoenix Ren could no longer see anything, he was able to precisely block Deng Shintong's attacks again and again. This surprised Deng Shintong a little. Phoenix Ren, empowered by the Phoenix, fought Deng Shintong back and forth. The crimson markings flowing through his body greatly enhanced his strength and speed. Interesting. Deng Shintong's smile grew even wider at the corner of his mouth.